Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Glad you came to hang out with us today and talk with Lou and Seth. Lou and Seth do not do a lot of these, so we're real privileged to have them join us, even though they have this amazing brand, this amazing company. And Seth has this podcast that he does as well. So lots of things to talk about. The main topic is going to be how they formed their business, how they created around the values that they live by. But Lou and Seth Cysewski, got that right? All right. All right. All right. I'm doing good. Lou and Seth are with Coolperx. I don't know if you guys checked out the website, Coolperx, Coolperx, an amazing brand. They are passionate about social purpose and environmental sustainability. But to Lou and Seth, these aren't really buzzwords to capitalize on. These are passions that they live by, have built not only their business around, but their life around. And Seth has been in the business a while. Lou joined about 5 years ago, but you're lifers now. And it's so exciting to have you guys here. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I told them when they got on screen, they're like the most made for TV couple that I've ever seen. Like just, perfect. What you guys built this business around social purpose marketing. But how do you define social purpose?
To me, it's really the intention that somebody is going to benefit and nobody is going to be harmed by what we're doing. So whether it's us looking at the manufacturing of our products or our intentionality with choosing very specific items for someone, we're just very specific on the impact of that, the impact on people.
Okay. Lou, did you come into this business with that? Both of you, was this an evolution of your brand and your values and mission? How did that come around where you realized that you're going to be a sustainability focused company, but not only that, but you're going to be very conscientious about what it is that you sell?
Yeah, it's very authentically who we are. I came from a background in nursing, and when you are spending so much time one-on-one with somebody going through some of the most traumatic and dramatic events of their lives, it's hard to switch to something that is less impactful and a little bit there's more distance right in this. And so the deeper I can go into a project, the more I feel like my purpose is being fulfilled.
You are the first B2B climate neutral business. And I love this phrase that you have with your branding and website, which we'll get into in a minute, because it's really, really beautiful work. Coolperx turns marketing purchases into clean energy. Can you give us some examples of what you mean by that?
You want to take that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that it got to me over doing this, 15 years or so was really started thinking about all of the times I've had to take runs to Goodwill or elsewhere and kind of seeing how some of the stuff ends up in a landfill. And I think our industry, maybe more than others, suffers from this perception possibly. And so what I wanted to look to do was really figure out, as we start talking about the climate crisis and we start talking about carbon. And so one of the things that I started thinking about is all of this stuff just really has like an impact in the same way like filling up with fuel or anything else does. And so we wanted to, I really wanted to look at and account for everything that was, all the products we sell to our clients, so that we're if we can make an impact in that way. And so we created a proprietary and accredited system to create carbon footprinting for every product and every order, really, all the way from, we think about like a t-shirt, where the cotton's grown, if it's grown abroad, then it has to go to before manufacturing. So, into manufacturing and then transport over here and then decoration shipped off elsewhere. So we wanted to look at all of that. And then we wanted to figure out what that looked like. and then be able to do something about it. And so what we chose to do is invest in clean energy projects in the middle of the country, actually, where a lot of legacy energy is still happening, and it's really carbon intensive. And so that's kind of, those are the two pieces of that statement. We're looking at everything that goes in, and then we're turning around and investing in clean energy here.
What was the accreditation? You mentioned the being accredited as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one of the challenges, and this has been going on forever, and you hear the word eco or this and that, and or carbon really, or net zero, or climate neutral, carbon neutral, is what we're really talking about is there's a lot of greenwashing going on right now. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to come up with something, you know, that's actually like science-based targets, and utilizing like accredited systems that are globally recognized. And so when we put it together, we wanted to make sure that we were accounting for everything from extraction, which they call cradle, to grave, which is end of life. And so we did that based with really, really strong science behind us. And so that was why we looked to put together an accredited system.
Yeah, another part of that is that globally, there's so many different ways in which we're accounting for carbon. Some companies are choosing to identify certain parts of their business, and then carbon is also worth different things in different markets, right? The cost of it, how to offset it or reclaim it is different in different markets. And right now there's not really a standardized system. So we went with the most data-backed system so that it would be globally recognized.
Yeah. I was just going to say that standardization really is a problem, and that's globally. I mean, so like trying to mitigate that and pull together, pull it all together in a way that makes sense was really a focus of ours.
What's the climate cost index? What's that about? That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So what we found is that I wanted to know the carbon footprint of these products we're selling. And it turns out I can't just Google it. It doesn't really exist in that way. So there's a lot of really big global, like TVR, some really big global sustainability firms that are providing, you know, this kind of consulting to like Fortune 100 companies and stuff. But when they're running like these life cycle analysis on these products, it's not readily available. And, you know, I'm sure everyone here is really familiar, like none of us sell 5 SKUs. And if we sold 5 SKUs, like our jobs would be a lot easier. But the reality is that, you know, every single day, every month is completely different, and it's completely variable. And so we wanted to create something that we could utilize day to day, like for all of our clients and for all of our orders. And so we put together really the first carbon index that works across multiple product categories, very conservatively looking at all the different factors. So we needed it to do what we wanted to do.
I want to get to the supplier vetting process here in a few minutes, because you obviously have a very far more complex vetting system than many of us do, just because of these layers that you have built in there. But what gives a practical idea of projects that you'll take from a supplier that maybe we all know, and you work with a client, and how they understand this through your climate cost index? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can actually go through. So Mir, everybody knows Mir by now. Mir is a Seattle-based company. No, the founder is a serial entrepreneur. He had a bike shop, a coffee shop, a whiskey bar, all out of the same space right down the road from us. Well, his B Corp, Mir, was producing these amazing tumblers, And immediately in our industry, we all saw the knockoffs, right? Like we all saw the $3 to $5 Camp Cup lookalikes, right? And what that meant to us is, one, the proprietary information that the founder, went through this process, created this really cool item with his own imagination, went through quality control and product development standards, right? And made sure that this item was functional. And, with somebody who cares that much and is a B Corp, he's actually taking care of some of our own requirements for labor conditions in the factories and that type of stuff, and material usage and whatnot. So then when that gets knocked off, none of these factories have the same, we can't guarantee those conditions. We can't guarantee the product is going to work and last a long time. It's not up to the same standards, but more than that, the ethics are just terrible, right? Like they've stolen something that somebody has worked hard for and just kind of thrown that out there for everyone to sell for like a ridiculously low cost. Then when people get it, it doesn't last as long. It doesn't work as well. It's less functional. It's less enjoyable, and then ends up maybe at Goodwill, most likely in the landfill. And so it's just really a waste of money. If somebody's spending $5 on these mugs, these cheap mugs, and they have to rebuy them every couple of months, why not just buy something that somebody made very intentionally?
I was talking with Joshua Wolf, whom some of you know, earlier today. We'll have a podcast with him coming up, and he talked about this idea of sustainability, the fact that it's such a big topic, right? You talk about sustainability and you have all of these other sub terms that come up, and we have the sustainability conference, as you know, as well. But he really talked about just being a conscientious seller to begin with. Mm-hmm. You have that baked into your DNA. Give us an idea what some of your favorite projects are, so we can sort of get our hands around the kinds of things that you do. Like, tell me a favorite project or something you've worked on recently that you're really excited about.
Well, it's not so much that my favorite projects are specific to the item. It's more of who we're helping and how we're helping them. So I love working with nonprofits because they have a budget directed by the board. And so we actually have to, so nonprofits come to us constantly and we'll, ask, they have the lowest budgets ever, right? And so then we have the ability to give them education so they can bring information to the board on, volunteer and employee turnover rates. And I mean, I'm on the board of a nonprofit, so I understand really how their brains work because I'm in these rooms and I hear them. And so I get to have these conversations with board members or employees at nonprofits to actually talk about how to best engage with people and show appreciation, because that's what we're really all about.
Lou, do you run into tell me what you do with this kind of friction when you have a nonprofit come in and they're looking for a project and their low cost is very important to them, but also values. I mean, you obviously, it's funny, I would think that you only have a certain type of client gravitate towards you, but you have all types of clients come to you. How do you handle that friction where you want to live up to the values that you espouse and that you abide by? And what's the kind of conversation you have with clients around this topic?
Well, I mostly want to hear what's important to them, because if I actually recognize what's important to them, I can maneuver around, how to either work with them or to show them somebody else who can better help them. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really just about connecting with a person.
Okay. Other than nonprofits, can you give us an idea of the other types of clients that you work with?
Yeah, we work with mostly, mostly tech companies with forward-facing sustainability missions.
Yeah. Have you developed a certain expertise in your market, like a certain specialty? Like some folks get into um, shops or e-commerce stores, or they get into kitting. Have you guys found over the past year gravitating toward anything in particular?
Um, sort of. We definitely do a lot of sustainability focused products. Um, but more so than that, it's really that higher end product, or I shouldn't even say higher end, because there are things that are much more expensive than what we're providing, but our price point is a little bit higher. um $50 to $100 price points, um for quite a bit of our stuff.
Let's talk about your supply chain for a little bit. That has to be a lot of work that you've put into, coming up with a core list of partners that you respect and work with. So can you give us an idea of what your vetting process is with suppliers as you're considering new projects?
Yeah, I joke that it's like a some sort of karmic blueprint that we are just destined to work together. These vendors that we have very strong relationships with seem to just jump off the page, whether it's like us looking online, finding something that we love, or running through a list at a trade show of who the vendors are, and immediately, like, somehow I'll just run into somebody like on the way out of the bathroom who will be in that company, and we'll start forming those relationships based on what we're already both working towards.
I would add too, it could be a lot of travel as well. So, I mean, well, right before the pandemic, we were in France, talking with vendors. We were just in Mexico City. We'll go to New York. So anytime we're traveling somewhere, a lot of times it's for business, and we're definitely trying to meet with different suppliers and manufacturers and stuff, and brands, and kind of hear what they're doing and see what they're doing hands-on. But I would say over the years, it's been extensive travel to make sure that we're out there meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
Seth, tell us a little bit about the podcast and the branding. I mean, you guys have done some stellar branding with your website and your position, I think, in the marketplace. Tell us a little bit about your thinking behind all of that. I know there's a lot of wheels spinning up there, and it's beautiful stuff.
Well, I would let Lou get into the branding. Like, I mean, the blue, picking that out of the Pantone book was really important. But I can speak to the podcast. So the podcast is scaling sustainability, and like Bobby, I have a lot of books, and so one of the things I'm just like really passionate about a few different things, like it's food, it's a little bit of history, and specifically like the rise and fall of civilizations, and kind of like looking at these patterns and how cyclical they are, in how we've just been here really a short amount of time. But part of that is looking at, like, I love technology, and I have since I was really little, and so looking at like the sustainability side, like we're really on the tip of this huge wave that's coming. And so there's a lot of innovation happening. There's a lot of like technology happening. There's a lot of people thinking about problems in different ways. And so I find that just absolutely fascinating. There's just like a bazillion case studies coming, and they're all just really unique, and it's all new. So I wanted to put together a podcast that really looked at, I mean, I think it's important that we make individual good decisions in our own life, and we're intentional with what we do. But I also know that to solve some of these really larger problems, it's going to take, corporations, multinationals, governments, much larger organizations are going to have to make some really big shifts. And so I wanted to look at, like, what's that going to require? Like, it's easy for me to make something small, but like, can that be done at scale? And like, and what are people doing, and how are they approaching that? What are those partnerships? So I put together this podcast. It's more of a pet project, because I just want to talk to interesting people that are thinking creatively, and about sustainability and how we're going to scale it going forward.
Also, don't let him fool you about the pet project, because this takes up a significant portion of his.
Hey, you don't have to tell me.
Like, it starts so innocently, right?
Right.
We actually were like 10 minutes, and then I'll just.
There you go. We were actually joking before we got on that some folks will say, hey, this isn't going to take that much time. No, but it is going to take some time. It's going to come from something. So Mark has a question here. He said, I'm curious to hear Seth and Lou's take on how to take the sustainability value prop to the mainstream. So it's not just focused on the higher end of the market. In other words, we all know and love Mir, but how do you cater to a more budget conscious client that is committed to sustainability in their purchasing? So how do you advise them so they're not necessarily breaking the bank?
So one, I would ask mostly who those clients are. If they are very, very small organizations, I tend to work with them on what they want to do and why, and their best use for their budget, because maybe it isn't in promotional products, maybe it's in some sort of advertising in a different way. But if it's a company, an enterprise company that's really trying to be cheap or says that they have no money for something, we really will kind of give them an ultimatum. It's not really an ultimatum, but it's like, you can do this thing that we're willing to do. This is our own lower end of what we're willing to do. Like, this is still well within our value system. And these are approved items, and we will allow you to buy them. This is the lowest that we're even willing to go. Or you can get this thing that's way better catered to your team. Here are your two options while working with us.
So you're willing to, go ahead. No, go ahead, Seth.
Oh, I was going to say, it's really intentional. Like we don't hide what we're doing in our beliefs. And I feel like, okay, here's something. So I've actually heard Lou do this to a client and she just said, no, how about not? And why don't you just take this money and reinvest it in your employees? Because when you guys travel to the show, you can upgrade their room, and they're going to take that and feel so much better going out there onto the floor, and they're going to engage with people in ways that they wouldn't have had you just bought whatever these stress relievers are or something, and just be throwing them into bags, right? And so it is a conversation, right? I mean, sometimes we'll have to sacrifice the sale for our values, but I don't feel like we're having to sell them. I think a lot of people, everyone has their own value set, and that's fine. And I think that as long as people are staying true to that, then everything kind of pans out. I mean, it's true. Some clients aren't our clients. That's just what happens.
Yeah. Willing to say no. Go ahead.
That story that Seth was talking about is actually one of my first experiences in this industry. Someone called in and said, I want, my boss wants 5,000 fidget spinners for my sales team to take to Chicago for a trade show. I was like, who's going to carry these stress balls, these boxes of stress balls? Because she had to get them delivered to her office, not even to the trade show. I mean, it was the most ridiculous thing. I'm not selling you 5,000 stress balls. That doesn't make sense. Why don't you take your couple $100s and just, put your sales team in a little bit nicer hotel, or send them out to dinner or something like that. And, so it was not really a trade show, it was a job fair. Yeah. And I just kept thinking, when you go to a job fair, you really just want to see happy employees as a job seeker. You don't want a stress ball, because that sends the entirely wrong message about your organization's culture in general. It's stressful enough that you have to have these, right? So
I do like the idea that when you engage with a client, you can open up a deeper conversation about values and what it is that they love. One of the challenges around the sustainability question is, it's so broad. Josh Wolf again told me this morning, he said, starting with asking your clients what you care about is actually a great place to start. What do you care about? I'm gonna put someone on spot because she's so smart, but I'm gonna ask Kate Plummer if she's got a question for Lou and Seth about distributors. And Kate being such a conscientious supplier and someone who's very considerate about the business and distributors that you sell to, what questions might you have for Lou and Seth about their vetting process? Anything else in particular?
Well, okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot because it ties into like your greenwashing comment, because I think a lot of people get stuck on the idea of things that are like green, so like bamboo, cork, etc., without looking at the bigger picture of it's not just product, it's production. So are they being paid a sustainable wage? Is it North American? Like, what's the travel that the product has to go into? And sort of what's the extra waste? Like, it's to give a context, like a conference that I plan is happening tomorrow, and my swag box is people, I was like, do you have any eco products? And they would send me eco products. And I was like, that's such an ugly shirt. And I was like, that's going to be landfill if I do that. And then I did something different. But I wonder, what thought do you put into, besides the content of like, this is a recyclable material? Do you look at the larger picture of where it's from, and how do you push that to your client? Like, say, hey, it's North American made, more expensive, but this is what it means.
Absolutely. We look at all of that. In fact, I'm very much a don't buy it if it's not going to work. If it's going to be mediocre, we have an internal saying of don't perpetuate mediocrity. So when it comes to a lot of the sustainability standards, and part of the problem with sustainability, like we've talked about, is that there isn't a standard term. We don't often know what the word sustainability in general means to people. And Seth, one of his recent podcast guests, John Pabon, is that how you pronounce his last name? So he was talking about consumers and what a consumer can do. What are some of the number one, 2, 3 things that a consumer can do to be more eco-friendly or responsible? And it's really about educating yourself on what everyone else is talking about, right? Like starting to learn these common terms and the language and what is real, so that we all start sharing this language. And because right now a lot of people think, okay, if I'm going to buy a reusable tote bag or a water bottle with a bamboo lid, or whatever else, that this is sustainable. And while having a glass bottle with a bamboo lid is fantastic, because when it does get thrown away, it's not going to be leaching into our groundwater. It's also maybe not the most sustainable thing, because you might not need another effing water bottle. Let's be honest here. So to further answer your question, that gets relayed to our clients in that manner, right? So I'm having these conversations with somebody and saying, okay, well, this award may be more than this award, but this is why. And, like the only time I ever really come across that is really when they've received other options from other vendors, and they're trying to compare apples to apples, and they're comparing apples to oranges. So I actually will go through and just, sometimes I'll state it up front and say, North American made, whatever the sustainability metrics are. But the good thing about having the data on it is that I can actually just say, boom, this is the carbon footprint of this one, and boom, this is the carbon footprint of this one, and what do you want to contribute here? And
can I just add a little bit? And to everyone's point, like, I think it is challenging, like sustainability being like this moving target, for everyone and what they're trying to accomplish. We could talk about materials, we could talk about carbon intensity, but like sometimes that's challenging, right? Like glass is infinitely recyclable. So it's like the most circular material, that and like aluminum and stuff. However, it's carbon intensive, the way they have to smelt it down and all that. So, and like, you know, plastic, I have like this distaste a lot for plastic, and I talk about it a lot. However, like there are some things, some of my favorite products are like amazing, and they're plastic or they're PVC or like they're dry bags or whatever, and they're going to last forever. And so this comes down to looking at it like holistically in a circular fashion. Like we talk about one of our core values, our top line one is covetability. We invented the word. but having something that's covetable, you know, I think you know, the Patagonia founder always mentioned that, you know, the greenest product is the one that lasts the longest. And we would add that, you know, that it's loved